He used to say he couldn't see himself in a mask. Now he thinks he looks like the Lone Ranger. In April, when America's Health Protection Agency recommended people wear face coverings, Donald Trump declined to join them.
I won't be doing it personally. I think wearing a face mask as I greet presidents, prime ministers, dictators, kings, queens, I don't know, somehow I don't see it for myself.
Now he says he's all for them.
I think it's a great thing to wear a mask. I've never been against masks, but I do believe they have a time and a place.
And if not now, when? Infections in the US are double what they were 3 months ago. The death rate has soared back up. More than 130,000 Americans have died. The so-called Sunbelt states are the hotspots now. In Florida, the epicenter, more than 250,000 people have caught the virus. In the hot weather, people are heading inside where there's air conditioning, but also less social distancing. And some, like these protesters, are ignoring local orders to wear face coverings in public.
Don't shut her down! Don't shut her down! Don't shut her down!
If you are afraid, if you are at higher risk, feel free to stay home, feel free to wear a mask, feel free to social distance. That is your choice and we respect it. We want our choices respected as well.
The bottom line is that a government is there to protect our rights. They're not there to tell us how to live our life and how to be healthy, basically.
Donald Trump fights an election in 4 months' time, and he's trailing the Democrat Joe Biden in the polls. Has the pandemic put paid to the president's hopes of a second term?
The sort of coming frontier for electoral conflict in the United States is the Sun Belt, starting in Florida, Georgia, Texas, all the way over to Arizona. And that happens to be where we have seen the greatest outbreak in coronavirus cases. If we get to the fall and we are talking seriously about states like Georgia and Texas being competitive, the odds are that Biden has already locked up the 270 electoral votes he needs to win, and we would be on the way to a landslide, the likes of which we haven't seen since Ronald Reagan's re-election.
The president would rather talk about anything other than coronavirus, even the furore over his decision to let Roger Stone off jail, his former advisor convicted of obstructing an investigation into Russian interference in the last presidential election. Today, the former head of the FBI and prosecutor Robert Mueller said Roger Stone is not an innocent victim but a rightly convicted felon. President Trump jumped at the chance to throw dirt in the other direction.
Take a look at Biden, Sleepy Joe. Take a look at Obama, and they spied on Donald Trump's campaign.
The question is whether his campaign this time round has been critically damaged by his handling of the health emergency.
Well, earlier I spoke to Dr. Sasuke Popescu, who's an infectious disease epidemiologist in Phoenix, Arizona, and I asked her why things are now so bad in so many parts of the United States, which had previously appeared to be doing so well.
I think a lot of this has to do with rapid reopening. And we see this in Arizona, where I'm currently at, Texas and Florida, and California is definitely feeling the heat of that as well. And so much of this goes to not only reopening too early and not really meeting the criteria for doing so, but so rapidly that it doesn't give time for healthcare and public health to really respond to this. So for example, in Arizona, we reopened over the course of about a week. And it really should take several weeks, if not months, to do this properly. So what we're seeing is this rapid transmission because states reopened so quickly, and ultimately a lot of the communication coming from leadership, whether it's state or national, has been that we're past COVID-19 and that it's no longer a problem and we're testing too much even, which really tells people that they don't need to worry, they don't need to be wearing masks, and that behavior really has led to, unfortunately, these spikes.
Dr. Sasuke Popescu. Well, here the number of UK deaths has risen by 21 in the last 24 hours to a total of 44,819, while there were a further 650 lab-confirmed new cases. The Cabinet Office Minister Michael Gove has said that he doesn't think wearing face coverings should be mandatory in shops in England, saying it was better to trust the public's common sense. Boris Johnson appeared to suggest on Friday that stricter rules for England could be on their way, while Labour backed the idea, saying that a clearer message from the government would be helpful.
You know, my view is that it's always better to trust people's common sense, to give them a clear sense of what is wise. And I think that individuals and businesses are responding well to that lead.
And around 200 workers at a farm in Herefordshire have been put into isolation after 73 people there tested positive for the virus. No workers will be allowed to leave, and the site near Worcester has been closed to visitors, although food and other essential supplies will be delivered. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister has promised financial help for people whose livelihoods have been devastated by coronavirus. Yesterday, thousands took to the streets in Tel Aviv to protest against his government's handling of the pandemic. Elsewhere, there have been increases in coronavirus cases in India and Australia as authorities around the world battle against the spread of the disease. Tel Aviv's Rabin Square last night, an example of the collateral political damage of lockdown. The unemployed, self-employed, entrepreneurs and business owners all demanding more help from their government as they struggle with the fallout from the pandemic. Israel imposed strict restrictions in the spring that appeared to rein in the virus, but it battered the country financially. Unemployment has surged to over 20%, and the popularity of Prime Minister Netanyahu has plummeted. His promise today of financial assistance for the self-employed and an aid package for workers and small business owners may come too late for too many.
I closed my business, I fired all my workers, and we are all sitting at home without any money.
With COVID cases rising again, the fear is of further restrictions and therefore further economic strife. While the spread of the virus in the Palestinian refugee camps of the congested Gaza Strip and the West Bank has been described as a nightmare within a nightmare. India is also struggling to contain the virus. 28,000 cases reported in the last 24 hours, its biggest daily spike yet. New Delhi, Mumbai and Bangalore among the key Indian cities affected, and in the lockdown city of Melbourne in Australia. The state's premier has warned this is a dangerous time as Victoria reported a 6th straight day of triple-digit cases.